What's going on, everybody, and welcome in to Plizont's podcast, filled with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes that are so cold they're boiling hot. Today, we have got a wonderful slate of games to talk about. We're going to get into last night's news today. We're going to talk about a preview for all of the wonderful sports we have today. Then we're going to get into our signature Plizont picks, still on fire, baby. Haven't had a bad day yet. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about one college football team's chances to make the college football playoffs. And you probably know who I'm talking about. So, let's get started with last night's news today. We were pretty hot and cold on our takes yesterday. Plizont's picks went 2 out of 3. We were very wrong about Captain Kirk playing in primetime. He had a hell of a night last night. And we were also really, really wrong about the Egg Bowl. Lane Kiffin just did not look right last night. He looked pissed, but not about the game. Just about the situation that he's in. I just don't understand what he's up to now. He might be leaving, I'll be honest. And it might not be for Auburn, but it might be another job. I'm not sure. He is totally off the grid as far as being a head coach for Ole Miss. I don't buy that he is going to stay there for now, although he recommitted himself to Oxford on Wednesday, but we'll see where that goes. The Bills struggled on both sides of the football yesterday. I didn't really expect that to happen. I thought their offense was going to be kind of dominant. I didn't think their defense was going to play great, but their offense definitely struggled at times. The Lions defense was able to put up some stops. And now we're talking about the worst defense in the NFL, being able to put stops on what was supposed to be a Super Bowl favorite. I now don't buy this Bills team. I don't think that they're capable of beating a Kansas City in the playoffs. And I just don't think that Josh Allen is playing like an MVP. Maybe that's due to his UCL injury, but going forward, we're going to have to see Josh Allen play a much better, more complete game, and we're going to have to see the Bills defense get healthy and step up in the big spots that they're supposed to. Next up, we've got Alabama handily beat Michigan State in basketball last night. Brandon Miller looks like a top 5 draft pick so far. He is looking very much like a Jabari Smith type, a big forward that's lanky, that can play down low, that can get boards, block shots, but also take it outside and shoot the three. He has a really dynamic handling package and a phenomenal finishing package. Alabama's off to their first 5-0 start in basketball since 2017. I think they have a chance to win the Phil Knight Invitational, so you guys better watch out for that. They're going to be playing UConn today, but we're going to get into that now with our previews for today. Most importantly, we've got the battle across the pond. As an American, I have to say, screw England. We are going to take it today. We're going to take it right to them. I'm buying America can win this game. Look, in all honesty, the odds are not in America's favor. However, it got some wonderful news today. Iran beat Wales 2-0 today, which gives us much better odds to actually make it out of the group stage. I would be so unbelievably happy if we could just keep it close with England today, because I think that the United States has a great chance of beating Iran, which means that we would 1000% get into the group stage. As long as we don't get blown out by England today, like Iran did 6-2, I give us great chances. Next, we've got big college basketball games. We got all these invitational tournaments going on right now, and the ones that I'm looking at is, like I said earlier, Alabama is playing UConn in the Phil Knight Invitational. This is going to be an extremely close match. UConn is 6-0. Alabama is 5-0. UConn has got some decent wins. They just blew out Oregon. Alabama is coming off a huge win against Michigan State. I do think that this game is going to be close. I would not be surprised if UConn would win this game, but I'm going to give the edge, like Vegas has, to Alabama, with them winning by 2 or 3 points. Next up, we've got Gonzaga versus Purdue. I love this game. I don't think it's going to be close, but I think Gonzaga is finally going to show everyone who they really are, and that is a team who can blow out mid-tier opponents. Gonzaga should run away with this, honestly. They're 6.5-point favorites. They have 2 signature wins. Recently against Kentucky, they just absolutely handled the Wildcats. Purdue really has not played to that level of competition. Their most signature win is either from Marquette or West Virginia. 2 of those teams not ranked. So I do think that Gonzaga has a lot more experience in these big play games. Purdue's ranked number 24, but it's not even close. Gonzaga has got just superior talent, superior coaching. It won't be close. I think they'll win by 10 to 11 points. And last but not least for college basketball, we've got Tennessee versus Kansas. And this has got to be one of the weirdest games that I've seen in a while. Somehow, Tennessee is 1.5-point favorites. I didn't see any major injuries to Kansas. Them coming off a win versus Duke, like where they kind of handled them pretty well, I thought that Kansas would be favored by 4.5 to 5 points. Tennessee struggled last night with USC, having to take them to overtime to get the win. They're ranked number 22. Not sure what Vegas is thinking here, but just to let you know, I'm riding with Kansas. I don't buy into this Tennessee team. They've struggled so far to start the year, even though they have a lot superior talent to their opponents that they've faced so far. So yeah, this isn't a lock, but I think Kansas will definitely win this game. And next up, we've got a huge start to rivalry weekend for college football. To begin, we've got Texas versus Baylor. Steve Sarkisian, he's got to show that he can win big in games that he is supposed to win big. Texas is looking for an 8-4 finish and a potential chance to get into the Big 12 championship game. I think that would be huge for Sarkisian's career and recruiting for Texas this next year. I don't think that Baylor can be able to hold this game close. They're playing on the road. They're coming off a huge, devastating loss to TCU in the last seconds. I think this Baylor team has finally given out its last dying breath. This will probably be getting ugly in the first half. I suspect Texas is going to win this game by 15 to 20 points. Next up, we've got NC State at North Carolina. Now, this might not be one of the biggest games that you've seen, but I do think that it is pretty big for Mack Brown, who has come out of retirement to coach this North Carolina team, and he has now got a chance today to get a 10-win season under his belt. Drake May might be a Heisman underdog favorite. We're going to have to see how he performs today. And in the ACC championship, I do think that he has a chance to win the Heisman. I mean, he is top 5 in passing yards, top 5 in touchdowns, and I'm pretty sure he's top 5 in completion percentage as well. So, I mean, he's playing out of his mind. The competition's not there, but against Clemson, they have a good chance to make some noise and get him potential candidacy for Heisman. I don't really think there's a strong Heisman favorite this year, so you might as well just go ahead and give him a shot. Next up, we've got Florida versus FSU. Mike Norvell has taken this FSU program and ripped it right out of the grave and brought it back to life. I'm so excited to see that. I love when FSU is a big player in college football. They're looking to finally win their 8th game and go 8-4 on the season today versus Florida. Now, this is going to be a tougher matchup than people think. Florida, they're 6-5, but they're a better team than their record shows. Anthony Richardson, I think, is a top 5 quarterback prospect. I don't know if FSU can win this game by the line that Vegas set, which is -10, but I do think that FSU can win this game. This is much more important for them than it is for Florida. They've already kind of reached their bowl eligibility, and it doesn't really matter if they have 6 wins or 7 wins. So FSU has got some dog in them. I do think that they can play this game very well. Potentially a blowout, but I'm suspecting it's going to be more like between 7 and 8 points. And that's going to do it for our college football, basketball, soccer preview today. Now let's get into the best part of the show. You already know we're 11-4 on the season, and we're going with Plizont picks. This today is a lock. You already know. I don't even have to discuss it with you guys. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Timberwolves -5 versus the Hornets. We're going to start with the NBA. LaMelo Ball is out. The Timberwolves are playing at full strength with their starting lineup. I don't really know why the line is 5. The Timberwolves have won their last 5 games. The Hornets have lost 3 out of their last 5 games. This is an easy pick for me. I know it's the Timberwolves on the road, but I think Cat and Gobert are going to absolutely dominate. Mason Plumlee, really? I don't buy this Hornets team can beat the Timberwolves. They have not looked good at all this year, and I don't suspect them to until LaMelo Ball gets healthy. So Timberwolves -5, lock it in, hammer it, go ahead and cash it out at the bank. It's over. You just might as well go ahead and go get yourself a nice steak dinner. Next up, we've got the Lakers -3.5 versus the Spurs. Anthony Davis, oh my goodness, he's been playing out of his mind. If you had to pick the top player in the league for the last 5 or 6 games, it's Anthony Davis. Now, yes, they are coming off a loss to the Suns. The Suns are a much better team than the Lakers right now. I do think, though, that the Lakers like to beat up on bad and beaten up teams. They absolutely crushed the Spurs last time they played them. They beat them 123-92. That's a 31-point differential. Just because they're on the road, I don't buy that point differential is going to go down by like 20 points. Like, what are we talking about? I think the Lakers are going to blow out the Spurs. Look for Russell Westbrook to have a big game as well, with LeBron still being out. He's going to get a lot of touches on the offensive end. They've still been playing great defensively, I think. I think that head coach Darvin Ham has finally got them into the rhythm that they need to be in on offense and defense. I don't know how this is going to play when LeBron James comes back, but right now you don't have to worry about that. Lakers minus 3.5. Book it. And last but not least, we're going to switch into some college basketball. Now, this is a very small play, but I love it. It's ULM, Louisiana Monroe, versus Omaha. Now, this Omaha team is absolutely putrid. I have never seen them play a good game versus a Power 5 or a Group of 5 team. The only teams I've ever seen them beat are like junior colleges, okay? This ULM team, yes, they are 2-3, but their 3 losses come to Power 5 teams and Louisiana Tech, who is a much better basketball school than they are. Omaha is probably in the bottom 5% of schools, and ULM today is only a 1.5-point favorite in a neutral site tournament. I think that ULM is probably going to blow them out by like 10 to 15 points. I don't expect this game to be close. This should be an easy lock. Okay, easy. We're talking guarantee. Plizont's guarantee. We're going to go ahead and add the extra stamp of approval. And that's going to do it for Plizont picks. Plizont is not responsible for losing locks. Please gamble responsibly. All right, and now I'm going to talk about a great thing to talk about as an Alabama fan. And it's going to be Alabama's chances of making it into the college football playoff. And I think it's a lot more possible than any of you think. I think these 4 things have to happen. And I think they're all very probable to happen on single case basis. Like maybe one of these things could happen. I think it's a lot more improbable for all 4 of these things to happen. However, there are a couple of locks that I expect. So I only really need 2 or 3 of these things to happen in order for Alabama to have a legitimate shot at the playoff. So first up, we've got Michigan. I expect them to get absolutely blown out versus Ohio State. This Michigan team has struggled a lot on the road. This Michigan team has struggled a lot trying to pass the ball. Ohio State has one of the most explosive offenses in the entire college football league. I don't buy that Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to outcoach Ohio State. I think that C.J. Stroud is going to have a day, probably get himself the Heisman lock. So that being said, I do think that Michigan will drop in the rankings. And now you have to decide, do you like a 2-loss Alabama team that lost by a combined 4 points, one in overtime, one with a last-second kick? Or do you like a Michigan 1-loss team who got blown out by Ohio State? Next up, we've got something else that needs to happen. We need TCU to get upset by Iowa State or lose in the Big 12 championship game. I think this is probably the most unlikely of all 4 scenarios that need to happen. I do think that TCU is a pretty good team and that they're probably going to win, and they're probably going to win big versus Iowa State. And depending on who their Big 12 competition is, it's either going to be Kansas State or Texas. I think that TCU has a pretty good chance of winning, but I would not put it past them to kind of choke in the Big 12 championship game. So then you've got a TCU team who scores a lot of points, gives up a lot of points, is a 1-loss and not a conference champ, versus a 2-loss Alabama team, like I said earlier. Which one does the College Football Playoff Committee take? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but I have my bets on Alabama. Next thing that needs to happen in this kind of elaborate scenario, we've got LSU getting blown out by Georgia. This is probably the most likely of the 4 scenarios. I do think that LSU is going to lose and lose big versus Georgia. Georgia is by far the best team in college football so far this year. So not much needs to be said about that. Now, when it comes to college football playoff selection, I do think that Alabama as a 2-loss and their 1 loss being to LSU on the road in overtime, I think the College Football Playoff Committee takes that over a 3-loss LSU who's not a conference champ. And so that being said, it's kind of obvious to me that Alabama could get in over LSU. Next up, we've got USC, who is going to either have to lose to Notre Dame or Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. I don't buy this USC team that much. Their defense is horrible. Their offense can play spotty, especially when it comes to big games. They played well versus UCLA last week, but can they play consistently in big games over and over and over again, back to back to back? I don't buy that. I probably give this the 3rd most likely of the scenarios, but at the same time, I think that other than TCU getting upset by Iowa State or the Big 12, I think the rest of these scenarios are extremely possible. Now, the percent chance of all four of these things happening, like I said, they're very slim. But if they do happen, Alabama is practically a lock for the college football playoff. So, in all honesty, overall, I give Alabama probably a 20 to 25% chance of making the playoff. All they have to do is just beat the ever living crap out of Auburn today, which I think is very possible. They're playing at home in Bryant-Denny. This is senior night, so it's a big night for Alabama, even though it's a rivalry game. Auburn has not looked great. I think Alabama has been really good at stopping the run so far this year. What they have been struggling with is stopping the pass. Auburn is not a passing team. So Alabama will finish the season 10-2, and I think they could be the first ever two-loss team to get into the college football playoff. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I think that's going to wrap up our podcast for today. I really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you guys all have a great Black Friday shopping experience, and I hope to see you tomorrow.